Happy Thursday, everybody. Hope you're having a good day today so far. Hope you had a good week. All right, so here we are. Part 2 of the deep dive into the Marilyn Manson lawsuits. I don't really have anything to say before we get started, so really let's just jump right in to where we left off. We were going to cover some of Evan Rachel Wood's accusations, and some other information that that is listed here on the website. So first I want to look at the 10 most probable motivating factors Evan Rachel Wood is targeting Marilyn Manson, because maybe some people are wondering, like, well, why is she? What's the whole point? And we have our ideas about why. So let's see what we have on this one. It says, someone recently wrote me and said to me that there's no possible motivating factor for Evan Rachel Wood to target Marilyn Manson, and they argued this on the basis that she is a successful actress who is in no need of money or fame. Well, I don't know if she's successful because, like I said, I've never heard of her except through this. So, whatever. After I explained that there are other factors, probably more powerful besides money or fame, for someone to target another person in order to destroy them, I was challenged to name just one. I replied that I have already made a private list of possible motivating factors, and they number 64 as of right now. But since I didn't want to burden anyone with the details of 64 possible motivating factors, I would narrow them down to 10, all of which I believe are highly probable factors why Evan Rachel Wood has targeted Marilyn Manson, and not one of them has anything to do with money or fame, though I do consider those two as possible motivating factors of a secondary nature. As time goes on and our knowledge of this case grows, I may modify this list of 10 of the most probable motivating factors, but here it is for now based on what we know. Media and career rehabilitation. When Evan Rachel Wood was dating and later became engaged to Marilyn Manson on and off from 2007 to 2010, the media and tabloids were relentless in targeting her as the one who was responsible for the divorce of Marilyn Manson and his then wife Dita Von Teese. She was also criticized for dating a man nearly twice her age, for taking on a more gothic image for which she was seen as trying to imitate Manson's ex-wife, and for her drug use. Most of all, the criticism revolved around how she could possibly find attractive a freak like Marilyn Manson. Because of these relentless stories, Evan being young and inexperienced, felt the need that she not only had to defend herself, but also to defend Manson. She was never prepared for the media backlash which Manson himself was accustomed to. In many interviews from the time, Evan is described, or she even describes herself, as being exhausted by the media and how the media was affecting her mentally and emotionally. She even said that the only negative thing about being with Manson was the negative publicity she got for it. This became a stain on her image even after Manson and Evan broke off their engagement in 2010. At least this is how she saw it. Almost immediately after their breakup, Evan came out as bisexual in 2011, who was going to devote herself to educating the public about bisexuality. She also soon after married fellow child actor Jamie Bell, and they had a child together. All these were some early attempts of Evan trying to rehabilitate her image for the media and her career. Rehabilitating her image became a much more pressing need for Evan in 2016 and beyond, when she decided she wanted to be an activist on behalf of all women, especially women who were victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. She needed a scapegoat to place the blame on for all her choices and indiscretions, and that scapegoat was Marilyn Manson. Why? Just because he's Marilyn Manson, and the public perception of Manson would make it easy to do. To win over her parents, apparently. I don't think I'm going to read all of this, but stemming all the way back to the divorce of her parents, David and Sarah, when she was a little girl and being separated from her brother Ira when her mother moved her from the native North Carolina to Los Angeles in order to become a famous actress. Evan developed a serious and debilitating mommy and daddy issues to the point that I believe led her towards a drug habit and suicidal tendencies. Okay, so if you want to read all of this, you can. Mental illness. Evan has been very open about the fact that she has many mental illnesses, some more severe than others, even to the point of having PTSD. For this, she claims to have gone through a lot of psychotherapy. She even claims she was led to try and commit suicide on 2 occasions, once when she was 12 and a second time at 22, and when the second attempt failed, she checked herself into a mental health facility. Then you have inadequate media coverage. Till this day on social media, Evan often complains about inadequate media coverage of her causes, often thinking the media is against her, when in reality, she is a media darling. Okay? Apparently, it's not a new thing, because we know back in 2016 and all that stuff. A savior mentality. When news came in that Donald Trump became president of the United States, Evan was filming a movie called Allure in Canada. She cried herself to sleep that night in despair that America chose, as she called him, an abuser and rapist for president. Oh, God, what a weirdo. When she woke up the next morning, quote, "I woke up out of my self-induced coma, numb and quiet." These people are so overly dramatic. Number 6, activism. By the time 2017 came around, Evan's radicalization that developed in 2016 became realized. Now she was being acclaimed like never before, winning awards for her activism on behalf of bisexuality, domestic abuse, and sexual assault, and wearing pantsuits to the various red carpet events that year. In 2018, she gave her harrowing testimony before Congress in Washington, D.C. to advocate for the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights acts in all 50 states. Her testimony went viral. Then, of course, you had the Phoenix Rising. Jealousy and outrage. As Evan was plotting to expose Manson with Ilma Gore and other accusers, she was noticing Manson having successful appearances on television shows and not having much of a backlash. Finally, on May 15th, 2020, Manson married his longtime girlfriend Lindsay Usich in a small private ceremony. Then, on September 11th, 2020, Manson released a critically acclaimed album called We Are Chaos. With other television appearances coming up and a tour being prepared for after the COVID restrictions were lifted, Manson's career was in full bloom. So, number 8, rehabilitation after Nazi photos emerge. In July of 2020, as Evan and Ilma are plotting to destroy Manson, and Evan's intentions were becoming more and more clear to those who were paying attention, damning photos and videos were released on the internet which showed Evan Rachel Wood and her brother Ira in 2007 dressed as transvestite Nazis at a Halloween party and another event snipping cocaine off a Nazi knife, and Evan at a Manson concert doing the, is that the Sieg Heil? I don't know how you say that. Salute by herself backstage. So the Nazi salute. Number 9, rehabilitation after social media backlashes. During the time Evan was a rising star in Westworld and being hailed for her work and testimony as a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault, she was also being very outspoken on Twitter about various issues dealing with those topics, to the point where she sometimes angered groups of people. In fact, there were 2 events specifically that caused such a backlash against Evan that she had to completely shut down her Twitter account, where she would often get into various feuds and focus solely on Instagram with a limited comment section. On January 26, 2020, Wood faced a heavy backlash for calling basketball star Kobe Bryant a quote-unquote rapist shortly after it was reported he and his 13-year-old daughter had died in a helicopter crash. How? That's so wrong. She tweeted, "What has happened is tragic. I am heartbroken for Kobe's family. He was a sports hero. He was also a rapist. And all of these truths can exist simultaneously." What a monster. How awful. And she doubled down and refused to apologize. February 27th, 2021, Vanessa Bryant, Kobe's wife, heard about the tweet Evan made over a year earlier. Vanessa replied that day on Instagram, since Evan was no longer on Twitter, and was able to tag her there with her message a year earlier. "This just came to my attention. Your false, insensitive, defamatory, and slanderous tweet on January 26, 2020 is vile and disturbing, to say the least." This reply reminded people who Evan really was as a person less than a month after she named Manson. I will confess, it was I who brought up this old tweet from earlier that year and got it to circulate days after Evan named Manson. Besides this, the tweet that caused Evan to leave Twitter altogether was when she defended Rose McGowan in May 2020, who had criticized Democrats and their allies in the media for their treatment of Tara Reid. McGowan recounted that she had experienced a political wake-up call following the left's efforts to downplay Reid's sexual assault accusations against President Joe Biden. Evan was the only public figure to support Rose, saying her critique of the left was spot on. By coming to the defense of Rose, Evan solidified a bond and loyalty between the both of them in order to ensure Rose would defend Evan against Manson, since Rose had also been engaged to Manson. When Evan named Manson in February 2021, initially Rose came out with a statement saying she had never suffered any abuse by Manson in the many years they were together, but then she had to make another statement defending the experience of her Me Too ally. Thus, with such devastating social media backlashes in her wake, for which she faced the public's heavy criticisms, it would prove to be a strong motivating factor to name Manson and reposition herself in the minds of people as a survivor and a powerful voice for women. So it sounds like even though Rose McGowan said that she never suffered any of that with Manson, she's not saying that Evan is not telling the truth about her personal experience with him. So while she didn't experience it, she's legitimizing that Evan could have faced her own experience like that. And then the custody battle. Last but not least, we have the custody battle between Wood and ex-husband Jamie Bell, who both had a son together named Jack. Since 2020 until today, Evan and Jamie have been in a custody battle because Evan decided in late 2020 and early 2021 to make a permanent move with her son, Jack, without the father's permission from LA to Nashville, based on what Evan has described in court documents as a fear for her own life and that of her son. Why this fear? Evan claims that in an encounter she had with Manson at an LA party in 2014, he threatened her life and threatened to F her infant son. This is an absolutely baseless accusation which Evan has exploited to make herself once again the victim in a custody battle. She says that she had to flee LA before she named Manson because if she named Manson and stayed in LA, he posed a very real threat to her life and that of her son. When Jamie requested for Jack to at least come to visit him, Evan refused, saying Manson lived only 3 miles away from Jamie and no amount of security could prevent any possible threats. Evan, in her usual controlling way, would only allow Jamie to visit Jack in Nashville, and they could only stay on the East Coast. Jamie found Evan's fears to be irrational and groundless, and still does, which is why Evan is now posting on social media how her ex-husband, by maintaining a custody battle, is forcing his ex-wife Evan into a cycle of abuse, thus making him now her abuser. What is really happening here, it seems, is that Evan made the move to Nashville with her son for dramatic purposes when filming her documentary on Manson, and the way she handled it was irresponsible and caused the whole thing to end up in a mess of a custody battle, which she has to stick through now since she is placing the blame for the custody battle on Manson. Thus, with the custody battle going on and the documentary Phoenix Rising coming to completion, which would help elevate and rehabilitate Evan's reputation as a survivor and activist, Manson became a target for Evan to control the narrative of her life and, more importantly, to control the upbringing of her son away from Hollywood, which she has come to despise. So, there is that one. The realization of abuse and the role of memory among the Marilyn Manson accusers. So this is kind of like they all forgot that they were abused and now all of a sudden they realize that they were. Yep, right? It says, the point of realization of their abuse and the role memory played among the Manson accusers is very significant to their cases. This is primarily because they have to account for the fact that it took them a significant amount of years to come forward. Furthermore, having taken so many years, legally they are up against the statute of limitations. All right. So this is the main accusers against Manson. What they have said about how they came to a realization of the alleged abuse they suffered and what role memory played in their coming to this realization. So, Evan Rachel Wood, Vulture, 2017. She said, quote, and to go on that journey with her and learn things about myself and to put my own experiences in what she was going through and using that as a vehicle to walk through my own false reality or my own repressed memories or trauma and breaking through and coming out on the other side. It was just transformative and fun. I just gave everything. And this is in comparison to her role Dolores in Westworld. In Nylon 2019, Evan describes how after her suicide attempt, she went to the mental hospital in 2010. And the first night she was asked certain questions by staff members. It says, after a few more questions, the woman gave a look to my mother and then back at me. I have to ask you about sexual abuse now, she said. My heart sank. My mother politely excused herself so as not to make me uncomfortable, and probably for her own sanity, Then I proceeded to share with this new person all the trauma I could remember or had processed enough to identify as abuse. Then her testimony before the California State Senate in 2019. I have had to go through intense therapy to even fully understand what has happened to me. The View, March 2022. He made me forget who I was, and it's taken me years to remember, and it's taken me years to get back to myself and to even understand what had happened to me. 2022, again, The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. You're running, you're trying to forget it happened, and then, of course, it catches up with you, and I couldn't run from it. So, then you have Esme Bianco, and she had her testimony before the California State Senate in April of 2019, and she testified saying, quote, in order for a person to survive traumatic events, especially those that continue over a number of years, the brain normalizes the horrific truth. In such situations, you are biologically incapable of grasping the true nature of these horrendous acts. This survival mechanism is as old as the human race and is the same for us all. My trauma had normalized the abuse to enable me to survive. It took me 7 years to get to the stage where I could see these acts for what they were, domestic violence. Apparently, she has a diagnosis of PTSD. Then on Twitter, she said in May 2019, I didn't even understand my experiences to be domestic violence until I was diagnosed with PTSD 2 years ago, and I started to unpack my brain in therapy. Only then did the pieces start to fit together and the painful process of healing began. Her updated court complaint, October 2021. It took Ms. Bianco years to understand the extent of what Mr. Warner's physical, sexual, psychological, and emotional abuse. Then you have Ashley Morgan Smithline. In May 2021, to People magazine, she said, I left and never looked back. I erased his number. I deleted every email. I deleted every photo. That was the beginning of suppressing everything that had happened with him. Her court complaint in June of 2021, if I could speak. It took Ms. Smithline years to understand the extent of Mr. Warner's physical, sexual, psychological, and emotional abuse. In fact, the true extent of the injuries suffered by Ms. Smithline were not fully realized until fall 2020, when she began meeting with other survivors of Mr. Warner's abuse. Ms. Smithline still fears the reach of Mr. Warner. Given his stature in the entertainment industry, the threat posed by Mr. Warner is not limited to Mr. Warner the individual. Rather, the threat is diffused and shared among Mr. Warner's legion of fans, supporters, and colleagues. As a result, Ms. Smithline has been forced to live in a constant state of fear. Then we have Jane Doe number 2, Chloe Black. Says in all her statements, and it's been repeated by her lawyers, that she repressed her memories of abuse and rape from 2011 until February 2021, when she started reading the testimonies of other alleged abuse victims of Manson. It was at this time that the memories came flooding back to her, and later she anonymously filed her complaint against Manson on May 28th, 2021. Then you have Ashley Walters. In March 2019, she first talked about the abuse she suffered through social media, which was also the day Evan, Esme, and Ashley Smithline did the same. On the stage, she claimed to not be able to talk about her abuse because she was afraid of getting in trouble by breaking her NDA. On April 23rd, 2019, when Wood and Bianco testified in front of the California Senate Public Safety Committee in support of the passing of the Phoenix Act, Ashley Walters was in attendance in the courtroom, as we see in Phoenix Rising. However, in her complaint against Manson filed on May 18, 2021, we read that Ashley had repressed her memory of abuse and did not realize the abuse she suffered until October 2020, when she attended the survivors meeting and heard the testimonies of other survivors. This is when her memories of abuse flooded back. On May 25, 2022, the Ashley Walters case was dismissed due to the statute of limitations and her lack of being able to supply evidence for her repressed memories. Then you have Gabriella. She says, it has taken me 5 years to speak out and say that I was in an abusive relationship. I've been diagnosed with PTSD and still suffer from nightmares. I blocked out a lot of the memories, but the feelings remain and manifest in various ways. Gabriella issued this statement in February 2021 on social media, but has since deleted her statement and has not proceeded with seeking legal justice. Here she claims some sort of repressed memories as well, though it implies a partial memory of the abuse she allegedly suffered was maintained. So, there you go on that. So here is a picture. And these are supposedly self-inflicted scars on her arm. So let's see. It says, she tweeted it out, and it says, 2 years into my abusive relationship, I resorted to self-harm. When my abuser would threaten or attack me, I cut my wrist as a way to disarm him. It only made the abuse stop temporarily. At that point, I was desperate to stop the abuse, and I was too terrified to leave. So this was March 11th, 2019. She posted 2 tweets that were supposed to be seen as evidence that she suffered domestic abuse. Here, we will only concentrate on the second tweet. In the second tweet, the actress shared an image that she says depicts the self-harm she engaged in to try and prevent her abusive partner from abusing her. The media ate up this news and disseminated this story everywhere, and it was generally received without question. However, if you read some of the comments under these stories from that time, many people were also skeptical, especially those who leaned conservative. The reason for this is because in January 2019, Jussie Smollett staged a fake hate crime against himself in Chicago, and people began to wonder if she also was staging a hoax for the same motive Smollett had, to become an icon of victimhood and raise their activist platform in the current left-wing political climate fueled by hatred for Donald Trump. When the media reported on the second tweet, they would talk about how a year earlier, in 2018, Evan also opened up about her self-harm when she spoke in front of House Judiciary Subcommittee in D.C. to advocate for sexual assault survivors' Bill of Rights Act in all 50 states. So the photo of the self-inflicted wounds became associated with the suicide attempt and subsequent stay in a psychiatric hospital, both of which, according to Evan's timeline, took place in August of 2010. But Evan, in her tweet, is very specific when she wrote it was 2 years into my abusive relationship. The problem is, Evan had not named her abuser and therefore had never told us at this point when she tried to commit suicide and when she entered a mental hospital, and by saying the photo was 2 years into my abusive relationship, we still didn't know in 2019 where this fit into the timeline. In other words, the timeline did not exist on March 11th, 2019 when this photo was released, and the media was too lazy to do an investigation. Still, however, the media refused to do an investigation even after Evan named her alleged abuser. Despite this, we can now say that the timeline this photo falls under is most accurately around January 2009, which is 2 years after she began a relationship with Manson in January 2007. However, January 2009 is nearly 2 years before Evan tried to commit suicide and entered a mental hospital. This means that the photo is completely unrelated to her suicide attempt and subsequent stay in a mental hospital. Furthermore, in January 2009, Manson and Evan were not dating. Their first breakup took place on October 23, 2008. They would not officially get back together until November or early December 2009, though reportedly they did briefly get back together in late February 2009. All this tells us that not only is Evan Rachel Wood off in her timeline of events, but she also allowed for the media to spread the lie that her photo of self-harm was associated with her suicide attempt right before she entered a mental hospital. This should make us question anything Evan says is true and question if what she says took place at the time she says. But still, the media refuses to investigate and follows an outdated timeline devised by Evan at a time when she held us all in ignorance so as to not be able to evaluate and investigate all these things. So there are 3 things in this photo that I want to concentrate on in order to establish what we are in fact seeing. Her position on the bed, which arm has the scars and the nature of the scars, her makeup, her color, and style. Her position on the bed shows that she is posing for the camera. Yes, you can tell. So, is that all we're going to talk about? Yep, no. Okay. So then you have here, the eyes are shut and the mouth is slightly open for dramatic purposes. The eye makeup is dark purple and the lipstick is dark red. The hair color also seems to be dark and the hair is gathered up instead of allowed to flow free. The scars themselves seem to be in different stages of affliction, perhaps because they were from different times, or perhaps some are more severe than others and are in different stages of healing. Nonetheless, they are in stages of healing and not very recent from when the photo was taken. If we were to follow the evidence without taking into account Evan's later narrative that these scars were self-inflicted, this is what an investigation will show us. 1. The only time we're told Evan became wounded to the point that it resulted in bleeding and scars when she was shooting the movie The Wrestler, which began production in January of 2008 and ended in March that same year. These photos show Evan and Rachel Wood filming on location for The Wrestler on March 4th, 2008 on the boardwalk in Asbury Park, New Jersey. We are not told when exactly the injury took place, but the timeline it could have taken place as late as March of 2008. This is how the injury is described by Evan in an interview. I bled for Darren Aronofsky. There's a scene where I get very angry at Mickey. I picked up an aluminum soda can and squeezed it, I guess, and threw it at him. We were in the middle of this emotional scene, and all of a sudden I think, why does my hand feel wet? And I look down and my hand is covered in blood. I'd split my thumbs open, and of course, Darren loved it. He's like, use it, look at your hand. And he asked the makeup artist to take note of the color of my blood. Darren glued my finger back together and we kept going. I was proud of myself, and I think I proved myself to Mickey. From this, we observed that the injury took place with her thumb splitting open. Nothing is said of the forearm. Very important is that the makeup artist took note of the color of the blood, which seems to mean that Aronofsky, wanted the bleeding to be recreated for the scene, but obviously didn't want her to keep bleeding until she died, so they glued the wound together. Alright. So there's another injury, or they're talking about the injury, and, we're not told, but we are told more details about the physically demanding and sometimes dangerous role. Okay. And then she talks some more. It says, without going into all the details, it seems that after the wound was glued back together, the scene was done with more takes to get things right, and it required for the makeup team to recreate the blood. However, her wound was also bandaged, so they cannot show the bandage in the movie. If you watch the scene in the movie, Evan's arms are covered with a long t-shirt. She throws a soda can with her right arm, but bleeding is never depicted. The only media source to actually feature Evan's injury was female artist. She's got a band-aid there. Okay. Got it. The first time we see the scars without the bandage is at a New York after-party to the screening of The Life Before Her Eyes a week later on April 15th. Then we see the scars again on September 5th. Right here. It's a little hard to see in that picture, but I can see them. Right there. Okay. On the same day, they can be seen in another dress worn by Evan. Right there. Yeah. So this isn't self-inflicted, it would seem. It would seem she got injured while filming and then lied about it. On September 7th, at the 2008 Toronto International Film Festival, the scars and other hand injuries are prominent. Yep. Those do look very similar, and she's got scars here. In October and November of 2008, she was photographed in sleeveless outfits, but no scar can be detected. Then at the 18th Annual Gotham Independent Film Awards at the Museum of Finance in New York on December 2nd, the scars faintly make their appearance again. Yep. At the premiere of The Wrestler on December 17th, you can see the scars there. See, that does look very similar to that earlier tweet. We see the scars again at the 66th Golden Globes Awards on January 11th, 2009. Yeah. We will conclude with an appearance of the scars at the 15th Annual Screen Actors Guild Awards in Los Angeles, California on January 25th, 2009. You can't really see the scars after this time. Yeah. So, we know that the scars are real and that they are hers. They're on the left arm and not the right arm. Manson is in none of these photos. The makeup and hair in the photo from Twitter in 2019 matches with Evan's makeup and hair in the photos from April 15th, 2008 the most. Evan took no liberties to hide her scars. Somebody must have asked her about these scars, yet no one today mentions them. And the scars always look the same, and no additional scars are ever again detected as long as Evan was with Manson. Yeah. So this is an investigation of a photo shoot that she claims captured her abuse. On March 11th, 2019, Evan Rachel Wood posted 2 tweets that were supposed to be seen as evidence that she suffered domestic abuse by an unnamed partner of the past, who almost 2 years later was revealed to be Manson. We already did an analysis and investigation of the second tweet. Okay, in the first tweet, the actress shared 3 photos that she says depict her weakened by an abusive relationship. So it says, the day of this photo shoot, I was so weakened by an abusive relationship, I was emaciated, severely depressed, and could barely stand. I fell into a pool of tears and was sent home for the day. So this tweet is very revealing in and of itself. Evan, in what has become by now familiar manipulative style, is creating a narrative for these 3 sad-looking photos because upon observation, no one would come to the conclusion that these photos prove in any way she was in an abusive relationship. To do this, she gives us no details about the photo shoot, such as what company or publication this was done, who was the photographer, who the man is that she's posing with, and that she cuts out of the photos. When exactly this took place and where. No context is given whatsoever except the context she wants you to believe to focus on. The reason she could get away with withholding this information is because Evan at this time had not named her alleged abuser, and the media refused to do an investigation, instead choosing to push her narrative without question. By Evan not naming her abuser, she could get away with any lie she chose to say and any narrative she decided to create because no one dared question the quote-unquote poor victim, and if anyone would have dared question her, no doubt she would have accused them of being part of the problem and perhaps causing them to lose their job. What is even worse, when Evan finally did reveal her alleged quote-unquote abuser on February 1st of 2021, the media still refused to investigate her claims. Since no media source is even remotely investigating Evan's claims, we will do so right here. So 1. In mid-June 2010, Gucci announced Evan Rachel Wood as the face of its forthcoming new women's fragrance called Guilty. The Gucci deal would be her first perfume campaign. In late June 2010, Evan was in Rome, Italy with her mother to do the photo shoot for the Gucci fragrance campaign with Elle magazine. On June 27th, she is seen in media reports taking in the city with her mother as a tourist. Oh, she could barely walk? Really? Something tells me that this is this. The man chosen to join Evan in the Gucci fragrance campaign was then 29-year-old actor Chris Evans. The design of the photo shoot was done by graphic novelist Frank Miller. Frida Gianni, Gucci's creative director at the time, chose Miller because she wanted the photo shoot to look like a graphic novel with the film noir style. Evan Rachel Wood was to depict a femme fatale, a lusty woman who goes after whatever she wants, someone who captures quote-unquote a milieu of guiltiness. The photo shoot was to be accompanied by a short film promoting the product directed by Miller in his familiar style, which would be shown in its entirety at the MTV Video Music Awards on September 12th, 2010. Let's see what it's like. I'll have to probably talk over it. Oh, this is the behind the scenes. Well, I don't want to watch that. Maybe we'll kind of skip through it. So I'd kind of like to just see them like doing the pictures. Okay, well, it's fine. We don't have to watch that. A behind the scenes video of the photo shoot was taken, even showing how the 3 sad looking photos Evan posted on social media in 2019 came to be. So when the photos are seen as a whole within their context, especially with the behind the scenes video, we can conclude that Evan is not being truthful when she says she was emaciated, severely depressed, and could barely stand. Instead, she looks like she's having a good time on set, healthy, talkative, smiley, wide-eyed, laughing, and joking. Yeah. So you can watch those videos if you want. Then we have some risque photo shoots of Wood between 2006 and 2012 in light of her sexual abuse allegations. So I'm assuming, I don't really know. It says, Evan Rachel Wood received a Spotlight Award for Emerging Talent at the 13th Annual Premiere Magazine's Women in Film Dinner at the Beverly Hills Hotel on September 20th, 2006 in Beverly Hills, California. The award was presented to her by her co-star in 2005's Down in the Valley, Edward Norton. Here are the photos of her receiving that award. Yeah, great, wonderful, nobody cares. This photo comes from her photo shoot for Premiere Magazine in October 2006 after she received the Spotlight Award. It consists of 2 photos and a spotlight on her related to her film Pretty Persuasion in 2005. Okay. Evan's description of this photo went through a certain evolution. She kept adding and deleting until she came up with her final version. Below is the evolution of her description till its final version. So first we have, this picture carries a lot of weight for me now and hurts my heart to look at. It's one of the last photo shoots I did before I was abused and assaulted. I was just starting to feel comfortable in my new adult body. 18 years old, newly free to make my own decisions, and ready to start a new phase in my career. My life was supposed to have a very different trajectory at this point. While I don't like having regrets and have been very fortunate in my life, sometimes it's hard to think of what might have been. So, then you have, this picture carries a lot of weight for me now and hurts my heart to look at. It's one of the last photo shoots I did before I was abused and assaulted by Brian, so now she's named him. I was just starting to feel comfortable in my new adult body, 18 years old, newly free to make my own decisions, and ready to start a new phase of my career. Okay, so that's already, while I don't like having regrets and have been very fortunate in my life, sometimes it's hard to think about what might have been. So, now, it changed it to, this picture carries a lot of weight for me now and hurts my heart to look at. It's one of the last photo shoots I did before I was abused and assaulted. Innocent. I was just starting to feel comfortable in my own adult body. Okay, so that's different. Then it says, I'm all too tragically aware of who you would have been, confident, secure in your memory and intelligence, happy, living inside your body. I saw who you were before I worked my destruction. The apology. So Evan emphasizes her innocence in this photo. First of all, pretty much the only place you can find this photo today on the internet is on porno websites. Not kidding. So it's not such an innocent photo. Second, you can't be all that innocent if you persuasively did films up to this point, such as 13, Pretty Persuasion, and Down in the Valley. Lastly, Evan had been in a series of relationships already by this time, including a very short relationship fling when she was 18 with a much older Edward Norton, who was her last fling before she started seeing Manson. In this caption, Evan is telling us with regret that in September 06, when she was 19 years old, not 18 as she says in her Instagram caption, and had just met Manson, she was an innocent person in a quote-unquote new adult body, newly able to make her own decisions. Okay. Because of Manson, she lost her confidence in her body. She began to feel insecure. She could no longer be happy living in her body. Now in 2022, she ponders with regret as to what might have been if Manson had never come into her life. Basically, we're supposed to assume by this that Evan never did a photo shoot again that showed she was confident in her body, at least not until she was out of the alleged abusive relationship with Manson. And it also seems like she wants us to believe that after this, her career as an actress went downhill. This was her high point, in other words, and she was about to reach her low point. Okay, now compare the statement from 2022 to a statement she made about her relationship with Manson, about how she perceived herself before and after she met him in Interview magazine from the November 08 issue, which was nearly 2 years into their relationship. Quote, I had been in a place where I was letting too many people dictate who I should be and what I should be, and I was trying to make everybody happy to the point where it was just killing me. I'd completely lost myself. It's kind of funny now that people think I've completely changed myself for him, when this is actually the first time in my life that I took a stand and said, this is who I am and this is who I've always wanted to be, and I'm finally with somebody who lets me be who I want to be. He never tells me what to do or what to wear or who to be. It's all my decision and he respects it, and that's what's important. So more than the relationship, it's me out on my own, finding myself and being in an environment where I can do that and learning how to deal with the crap you're going to get back from it. I remind you, she said this before her first breakup with Manson on October 23rd, 2008, and not in the early part of her relationship. Their relationship ended in October 08 because Evan was too focused on her career and had rejected Manson's proposal for marriage. And number 7, while she was with Manson, they hardly ever saw each other because they were both busy, which shows Evan's career was going up, not down. Some of the highlights of her career were made while she was with Manson, such as The Wrestler, Whatever Works, True Blood, and Mildred Pierce, all critically acclaimed roles. If she was put any blame on Manson, it may be perhaps because Manson had promised her a role in 3 projects of his that never came to fruition: Phantasmagoria, Splatter Sisters, and I Want to Kill You Like They Do in the Movies. If we look at their timeline together, not only did they film for it, but Evan took some time off to do so. As for Evan's confidence in her body, well, that is what this article will highlight below. Yeah, she has confidence in her body or she wouldn't be dressing like this, okay? Absolutely has confidence in her body. There's just not a lot of people who would do photo shoots like this if they didn't. I have confidence and I'm not going to do photo shoots like this. No way. Because, I have some modesty. So. But she does a lot of photo shoots like this. And she's not one bit embarrassed to do them. Even as far as getting naked. So, yeah. What are these photo shoots for? I don't know. But here's a caption. One of the first photo shoots I did after escaping abuse. They have seen more. They have learned more. They have come out of the closet. They are about to become a mother. They are about to help others find that same freedom. They have been through the abyss. They are a survivor now. So the photo that she's talking about, that's this one here. But this photo was taken almost a year and a half after her breakup with Manson, and she did do photo shoots in between. The reason she posted this photo is because she had just come out as bisexual, was about to get married to Jamie Bell, and a year later have a child, so for her these were a positive direction in her life. She views this photo as one of the first photos since finding freedom, quote unquote. Evan claims she went through the quote unquote abyss since that photo shoot in 06. Notice she didn't post any photos from 07 or to 2010 on her Instagram. Why? Because it would destroy her whole narrative. The whole narrative comes down to Evan wanting to show she is a quote-unquote survivor. But a survivor of what? Why does she refer to herself as they? They them pronouns are used, according to far left thinking, when we don't know the gender of the person to which we are referring, or if we want our sentence to be applicable to all genders. Evan is exalting herself as a bisexual and refers to herself as not her or him, but as a they. Yeah. Lest anyone say that Evan never did a risque photo shoot again after she came out as bisexual, I will present one last example of a topless photo shoot she did with Ellen von Unwerth less than 6 months after. Read entire thread. So I decided to do a throwback photo rollout on Instagram, and while looking up old photos of mine, I stumbled across this. A familiar feeling washed over me. This feeling of worthlessness. Then I remembered it's all a lie. I post topless for Ellen von Unwerth photo shoot, and whatever that is, Vogue no less, decided to take me down a few pegs. Look at the narratives that are assigned to women. Look at the way we make their looks, their value, or what makes them interesting. Look at how they judge my life at 18 years old without giving a second thought as to what my situation might have been. Look at the way they assume my posing was for them, to make them like me, instead of me just living my best life with one of my favorite photographers. And not giving a crap what anyone thought about my body. It just makes me really sad, that's all, that this is the respect we give women in the industry. The weirdest thing about Evan's response is that she says she was 18 in this photo shoot, when in fact she was 24. If this isn't a sign of her delusion, I don't know what is. So there's that. Let's do this last one real quick, and then we're going to end the episode. The fact checked. Was Manson really planning to kill Evan Rachel Wood? I'm going to say no. But it says, on March 2nd, 2018, Jill Gutowitz of Glamour asked, why is nobody talking about Marilyn Manson's fantasy of killing Evan Rachel Wood? This is the week Wood testified in front of Congress. Okay. In this article, Gutowitz sought to remind her readers that in an interview with Spin in 2009, Manson admitted the following quote, the song I Want to Kill You Like They Do in the Movies is about my fantasies. Responding to a question about his relationship with his ex at the time, Wood, Manson continued, quote, I have fantasies every day about smashing her skull in with a sledgehammer, end quote. So Wood would go on to repeat several times over the years that she felt like she was going to die at the hands of her abuser, and when she named Manson as her abuser, she said that Manson threatened her life through physical and mental abuse. Now, October 3rd, 2021, Elif Osden of Metalhead Zone wrote an article with the headline, Accuser Admits Marilyn Manson Was Planning to Kill Evan Rachel Wood. This was written in light of Manson's accuser Jane Doe refiling her sexual assault lawsuit, which was dismissed a few months ago because her testimony was based on a groundless claim of having a repressed memory, and among the repressed memories was her claim that Manson told her that he considered killing his ex-girlfriend Wood. She then revealed the musician told her about how he tied Evan to a chair and pointed a gun towards her. Moreover, Doe alleged that Manson considered killing Evan, but then decided to, quote-unquote, be merciful. Another Manson accuser, Ashley Morgan Smithline, said in an interview with People that the common belief of all the alleged victims of Manson's abuse was that Manson was trying to get them all to commit suicide. This was his goal, according to all the accusers. After Metalhead Zone published this article, Metal Injection followed 2 days later with the headline, Accuser claims Marilyn Manson planned to kill Evan Rachel Wood. Wood encourages contacting LAPD. This refers to the fact that Evan Rachel Wood reposted snapshots of the article by Metalhead Zone on her Instagram and included the following 3 posts encouraging her followers to make some phone calls and push the investigation against Manson forward. But the links were removed. So there you go. There is no investigation out on Manson. This should be clarified from the beginning. Wood knows this, but she still wants you to harass law enforcement in California and waste their time. Why is it that she is now so quick to want to call law enforcement, but never attempt to do so when she felt her life being threatened? To say you felt it would destroy your career is a very poor excuse, especially when the relationship was over and Manson again started dating many women, who also could have suffered being with him and even been killed if what she claims was true. Why hasn't Evan issued an apology to all the women that supposedly suffered and almost died under Manson? Evan could have stopped the abuse dead in its tracks. Instead, the only thing we got for years after their breakup was Evan gushing about her relationship. What triggered Evan Rachel Wood all of a sudden to resurface this issue? It was partly Jane Doe backing up her claim, Metalhead Injection publishing the headline, but there is something else. On the same day that Evan posted these things on Instagram, she was in New York on the set of Westworld, where it was announced the same day, October 5th, that the show is reviving her character Dolores. If you read the Rolling Stone interview from November 2016 with Evan, she goes into great detail how this character serves as a primary inspiration for her self-empowerment, and it was at the height of her fame playing this character at the time that she found the courage to finally admit that not only was she abused by a previous partner, but she was raped as well. So what we have here is Wood not only stirring up added publicity, since from her perspective, fame, victimhood, and activism all go together, but she feels inspired by a character who is out for revenge against those who abused her in the past. The song I Want to Kill You Like They Do in the Movies comes from an 2009 album, The High End of Low, and has no basis in a real event, but rather one that is fictional, imaginary. According to Manson, this album was made like a movie that draws from his own biography, but fictionalizes it to reflect a story similar to movies like American Psycho and Cape Fear. It is based on his relationship with Wood because before they broke up, he was planning on making a movie of a similar nature with her. Since they were no longer together, he went forward with a project in which she is a character, and this was reflected in the interview he gave at the time. Even before Manson met Evan, he talked about the role of the imagination in the stories he tells in his albums as a way to exorcise your demons without giving in to them. Ashley Morgan Smithline's claim, which is a claim, according to her, of all the alleged victims of Manson, is ridiculous. First of all, she's trying to make Manson out to be a serial killer. Secondly, by stating his goal was to get these women to commit suicide, she is already admitting to him failing to achieve his goal, since there is no woman who was in a relationship with Manson that ever committed suicide. The scenario painted by Jane Doe, in which she claims Manson told her he planned to kill Evan, is based on what she admits to being a recovered memory from a memory that she had repressed for about a decade. If you read her testimony, he apparently did this while showing her violent films that he made. These violent films in her testimony she considered to be real violence by Manson. One video was a short film called Groupie, which Jane Doe thought was real, and even says in her testimony that Manson implied to her that he killed a groupie in the video. Since this testimony came out, the woman Jane Doe thought was killed in real life has come out in a public interview saying this was an acting gig she did with her then boyfriend Manson. It should be noted further that we possibly have the origin story in which both Evan and Jane Doe based their claim that Manson planned to kill Evan. Evan has admitted that she and Manson filmed violent footage together for a movie he was making. In fact, it seems that this footage was for the music video to I Want to Kill You Like They Do in the Movies. Esme Bianco, another Manson accuser, was cast in this video after Manson and Evan broke up, but she claimed it was too difficult to endure, among other things. To be clear, this footage is fake and done with Evan's consent. Many people assume this footage was never released, but it partly was. In 2009, the intro page to Manson's official website had the video playing as a flash, which shows Manson beating a naked and bloody Evan Rachel Wood while she is tied to a chair. We know this is the real Evan and not an actress because at the 34-second mark, we can see her back tattoo of a quote from Edgar Allan Poe that Evan is known for. So, did Manson plan to kill Evan? There's no evidence to suggest this is true, and the proposed evidence we do have is not only very weak, but the testimonies are very unreliable. In fact, what we do have is evidence that the accusers are using Manson's artistic expressions as fuel to light a fire of false accusations, artistic expressions that Manson himself made public. But if you don't understand Manson as an artist and are naive, this art can easily be used as evidence against Manson, even though it will never hold up in a reasonable court of law. We will examine this in greater detail in future posts. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to show you those videos. We still have a lot to cover. Not much more on Evan Rachel Wood, but I do want to just take a look at, I don't know if we're going to look at all of these articles here, but we're going to look at them and the ones that we will end up reading, but I just don't have enough time to continue on. But really, there's not that much more left of her, and then we'll go over Esme Bianco, which these accusers are much, much shorter, and some of the articles we've already looked at because they've already been mentioned. So some only have 2 to look at, or even just 1 like these girls. So this isn't going to take much longer to get through the accusers, and then we'll move on to the accusations. And we'll do that next Thursday. We will start back up, and we'll probably finish up Evan Rachel Wood, and then take a look at who Esme Bianco is and her story with Manson. So we'll end the episode here for now. Don't forget, you can go find me on Rumble. Go subscribe to my channel there. Watch my videos, like and share them. And my YouTube channel, subscribe there. Hit the notification bell. Go watch my videos there. But I get censored on YouTube, so I have to make sure I'm very careful about what I say. But you can get all my uncensored content on Rumble. And also, my link tree is in the description box where you can get to all of my social media accounts. But I'm most active on Twitter, and you can chat with me there, my email, all that. You can send me suggestions of things you want to talk about, news stories that you've seen or read that maybe I haven't talked about. And I hope that you will join me back here next Thursday. And don't forget my regular upload on Mondays at 9 a.m. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and God bless.